If you'd met me a year ago, you probably would have liked me. I was easy to like. Quiet. Agreeable. The kind of woman who refills everyone else's coffee before she touches her own. I'm 32. I design buildings for a living, floor plans, load-bearing walls, the invisible architecture that makes spaces feel safe. My husband Mark has this habit of squeezing my hand twice when he's proud of me. Our daughter Lily turns 8 in the spring. She draws horses on everything. The margins of receipts. The shower door. My arm once with a Sharpie while I was asleep. I tell you this because I want you to understand what I was protecting. Not an idea of family, not a legacy, her. I grew up believing that blood was a covenant. That no matter how badly someone hurt you, if they shared your last name, you bore it. You carried them. You kept the machine running, because the alternative, the falling apart, was worse than the weight. It took me until my daughter was unconscious on a hospital bed to understand the difference between loyalty and surrender. My mother, Evelyn, had a gift. It wasn't warmth, she could simulate that beautifully. It was the ability to make you feel perpetually behind on a debt you'd never agreed to take on. A look across the dinner table. A pause before she said your name. I spent my entire 20s trying to close that gap, working myself raw to earn a moment where she looked at me the way she looked at Christian. Christian was her project, her proof. The brilliant son who just needed a little more time, a little more grace, a little more of whatever you had. He burned through his college fund, dropped out, floated through years of vague plans and borrowed money, and Evelyn absorbed every consequence with the calm certainty of a woman who believed some people were simply meant to be caught. When the debt collectors started calling $45,000 an unfinished degree, a paper trail of bad decisions, Evelyn sat across from me at her kitchen table and took both my hands in hers. She was crying. Real tears, I think, or close enough. You're his big sister, she said. If you don't help him now, it follows him forever. Please, Sarah, you're the only one. I was 26. I said yes. For 3 years, I worked like I was outrunning something. 80-hour weeks. Client calls at midnight. Mark eating reheated dinners alone while I sat at my drafting table with the blue light burning a headache into my temples. I wore the same 4 pairs of shoes on rotation until the soles were smooth as glass. We skipped our anniversary 2 years running. I told myself it was temporary. A season. Christian never said thank you, not once. He didn't quite meet my eyes at family dinners during that period. Not out of shame, I eventually understood, but out of indifference. The money was simply expected, a river that runs because that's what rivers do. By the time Christian met Khloe, I had paid off most of his debt and convinced myself this was over. Khloe was the kind of woman who discussed the thread count of her sheets at dinner parties. She and Evelyn took to each other the way two people do when they share a very specific language, the language of being owed things. When they got engaged, Evelyn called to tell me I'd be hosting the engagement party, not to ask, to tell. I spent 6 weeks and several $1,000s I didn't have making that evening beautiful. The catering, the venue rental, the flowers Khloe had specified in an unprompted email with photographs attached. On the night, Khloe circled the room accepting compliments. Christian got drunk by 9. Neither of them spoke to Mark beyond a brief, distracted hello. I drove home afterward and sat in the car for a while before going inside. Mark and I had a plan. We'd had it for 5 years, and we protected it the way you protect something fragile, with both hands, always. Every dollar we didn't spend went into an escrow account. No vacations. Birthdays celebrated quietly. A running spreadsheet, Mark updated every Sunday night while Lily slept. $80,000. A house in a district with a good school. A yard big enough that Lily could run in it and we could see her from the kitchen window. We were 4 days from the closing when our babysitter called at 11:30 in the morning, coughing and barely able to speak. Our bank appointment was at 2. The rate lock expired at 4. Every day we missed cost us $300 a month for the next 30 years. I sat in my car in the driveway for a moment, and then I called my mother. I don't know what I expected. I think I expected her to be who I needed her to be, just for 3 hours. I think some part of me still believed that was possible. Bring her over, Evelyn said, her voice warm the way it got when she wanted something from you or wanted you to think well of her. Christian and Chloe are stopping by for lunch, but there's plenty of room. Go sign your papers. We'll be here. I kissed Lily in the doorway of Evelyn's house. She had her coloring book tucked under one arm and was already scanning the room for interesting things to investigate. Be good, I told her. We'll celebrate tonight. She was already gone, running toward the hallway. Mark and I held hands across the center console the whole drive downtown. We were giddy in the way you are when something you've worked for a very long time is finally close enough to touch. At the bank, we sat across from a loan officer and signed our names on forms for an hour and a half, and I kept thinking about which room would be Lily's. I didn't know what was happening 40 minutes away. Chloe had brought in necklaces. An $18,000 antique diamond piece that had been her grandmother's, which she'd removed to show Evelyn the clasp and left draped over a velvet jewelry stand on the hallway console table, the kind of careless handling that implies you've always had beautiful things. Lily came out of the guest room, looking for the bathroom. The strap of her backpack caught the edge of the stand. She probably didn't even feel it. Just a small snag, a half-second of resistance, and then the stand went over and the necklace fell and the antique clasp hit the hardwood floor and snapped clean in half. 3 diamonds scattered like spilled rice. The sound of Chloe screaming brought Evelyn up the stairs. My daughter was 7 years old. She was standing in the hallway saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, over and over, and I know this because it's on the recording and I have watched it enough times now that I know every frame. What I cannot watch anymore is what Evelyn did next. She grabbed Lily by the backpack strap and threw her. That's the word, threw. Not pushed, not grabbed and shoved in a panic. She swung my daughter sideways with enough force that Lily's feet left the floor and her head hit the edge of the oak door frame with a sound that, according to the audio, made Chloe go instantly silent. Lily didn't cry. She dropped. When Christian arrived, my daughter was unconscious on the hallway floor with blood pooling from her temple. He made a calculation. I know this, the way I know anything else about that afternoon. From the recording, from the text messages, from what Dr. Aris later confirmed about the timing. Christian looked at my bleeding child and thought about the arrest that would follow a 911 call, and the insurance claim they'd been planning to file on the necklace, and the way a police report would complicate all of it. So they cleaned up. Bleach on the doorframe. The scattered diamonds retrieved. Lily carried to the guest room and laid on the bed. A story assembled over coffee downstairs while my daughter's brain swelled. She'd been playing near the basement stairs and slipped on the carpet. An accident. These things happen. They waited 90 minutes before calling me. 90 minutes. My phone buzzed as Mark and I were walking out of the bank. I was still holding my copies of the paperwork. Christian's voice was careful, the voice of someone performing calm. Hey, don't freak out, but Lily had a little fall. She's at St. Jude's. You should probably come. I don't remember running. I remember the pavement and Mark's hand and then the sliding doors of the ER and then Evelyn standing in the waiting room, holding a paper cup of coffee, her posture composed in the way of someone who has had time to prepare their face. She hugged me. I felt her hands shake. The poor thing just wouldn't listen, she said into my ear. I told her not to play near the stairs. I didn't answer. I walked past her. Lily was hooked to monitors. Her face was the color of old paper. Her head was wrapped in surgical gauze. I pulled back the edge of the hospital blanket to hold her hand and stopped. There was bruising across her collarbone and shoulder. Dark, defined, the shape of a grip. Not the scattered scrapes of a fall. Something had hold of her. Dr. Aris pulled us into a consultation room and closed the door. He had the particular gravity of someone who has done this before and never gotten used to it. We've stabilized the intracranial pressure. She has a hairline skull fracture and a severe concussion. He paused. I need to ask you directly what happened. I told him what Evelyn had told me. He shook his head slowly. Lily's injuries aren't consistent with falling down carpeted stairs. The impact site was caused by high-velocity contact with a sharp vertical surface, a wall or door frame, and the bruising on her shoulder indicates she was grabbed and thrown with significant force. A beat. This wasn't an accident. I went to the bathroom and locked the door. I stood over the sink for a long time. I could smell Evelyn's perfume on my jacket from where she'd held me. Under it, so faint, I might have imagined it. Something metallic. I didn't fall apart. I think I expected to. Instead, something inside me went very quiet and very still and very certain. I had been the daughter who swallowed things. For 32 years, I had been an accommodation. I had paid their debts and hosted their parties and answered their calls and carried their story forward. And, while I was at the bank signing papers for our daughter's future, they had let her bleed on a bed to protect a jewelry insurance claim. They thought I would do what I always did. Absorb it. Smooth it over. Keep the family name out of the papers. They forgot one thing. Evelyn was my mother. But I was Lily's. I dried my hands, unlocked the door, and walked back into the hallway. I found Mark. I leaned in and told him what the doctor said. I watched something ignite in his face. Don't, I said quietly. Not here. Not like this. We're going to take them apart, but we're going to do it right. The next morning, I went to Evelyn's house while she was out. I'd given her a nanny cam a year ago, a digital clock on the hallway console table. I'd set it up myself. She never asked me how it worked. I slid the memory card out of the back, got into my car, and sat in her driveway with my laptop on my knees. The footage was clear. All of it. What Evelyn did. What Christian and Khloe said afterward, over coffee, their voices unhurried. The insurance plan laid out in full sentences. The agreement to wait. I sat there watching it twice, because I needed to be sure I was seeing what I was seeing, and then I drove to the police station. Detective Vance watched the footage without speaking. His jaw tightened once near the end. He had a warrant within the hour. I knew that Evelyn hosted a charity brunch on Sunday mornings. 24 guests, neighbors, business contacts, the social infrastructure she'd been constructing for years. I knew Christian and Khloe would be there because they were always there when there was an audience. I arrived unannounced. I walked into Evelyn's living room with my phone in my hand, connected to the home network she'd never changed the password on, and I pushed the footage to her smart TV. The room went quiet the way rooms do when something terrible is happening and everyone is still trying to understand what they're seeing. Then Evelyn's voice came through the speaker. And the sound, in Christian's voice afterward, low and deliberate, making the plan. Khloe dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the tile. Evelyn came at me and I stepped back, and she was still screaming when the police came through the front door. Detective Vance put handcuffs on my mother in her own living room, in front of every person she'd ever tried to impress. Christian and Khloe were arrested on the lawn. I stood in the doorway and watched. Evelyn is serving 7 years. Christian and Khloe lost their jobs within 2 days. The footage went everywhere, and the bankruptcy that followed took everything they'd been leveraging. The fraudulent insurance claim became additional charges. Lily is healed. She drew me a picture of our new house last week, complete with the big backyard she'd asked for, and a horse in the yard even though we don't have a horse, because she's Lily and she's 8, and she believes in additions. Mark and I sit on the porch sometimes after she's asleep. We don't talk about it much anymore. We don't have to. I want to ask you something honestly before you go, because the part that still keeps me up some nights isn't what they did. It's what I almost did instead. I almost absorbed it. I almost called it complicated and held the family together one more time. I was standing in that hospital bathroom genuinely considering it. If it had been your child, if it was your mother, what would you have done? Would you have gone to the police, knowing it would end everything? Or would you have found a way to swallow it? I'm asking because I think a lot of us know exactly which one we tell ourselves we choose. I'm less sure we know what we'd actually do when we're standing in that bathroom with the perfume and the blood and the silence. Tell me in the comments. I really want to know.